So a smash room is the very best and safest place to release everything emotionally, tension, physicality into one environment. I had a young guy out here on the weekend. I don't know his background, but when I got him in the room, I told him, this is your safe place. And I meant it. I absolutely meant it, because it is. Once you close those doors, this is your safe place. You can smash anything. You've got complete permission. Break it, obliterate it, absolutely eviscerate it. Whatever it takes to unlock whatever you're feeling, to let it go. If you can get to a point of leaving most of everything that you feel in that room at that point, job done. Absolutely job done. It is the safest place to do that. Don't do it at home. Don't do it on your friends. Don't do it at your friend's place. Don't go down to the local dump and do it. Come to a place like this. We'll dress you safely. You'll feel everything and you'll be able to release. And if you need to stay in the room for an hour, stay in the room for an hour. Scream, yell, cry, whatever it takes. It's the safest place. A lot of people ask me, where did the idea come from? Now, if you roll it all the way back, smash rooms actually started in Japan, 2008. So in terms of commercialising them, that didn't happen for probably another decade. My inspiration came from a convoluted bunch of different things that were happening in my life at the time. And that was probably between 9 and 12 months before I actually decided I want to give this a bit of a go. So in that 9 to 12 months, I was running a coffee trailer business. I was able just to pull up in my little coffee trailer first thing in the morning, and I'd have all of my regulars come down. In the meantime, I was winding up another wholesale textile business that I was running. A couple of my competitors had done a few things that kind of cut me out of a few areas that I had almost a monopoly on. And I thought, look, my passion has left for that business anyway. So I slowly got rid of it. And I was late 40s and I got to a point and I'm like, okay, coffee business is great. I love making coffee, I still do. However, I don't like the 4 o'clock starts. I don't like the 14-hour days when I go to a festival. I love the festival. I don't love how I feel when I come out of it because it is such hard work. But it's rewarding and it is profitable. I'd started Rage Cage, but it was really in its infancy. And I had this shed that I was slowly getting rid of all of my wholesale textiles out of. So I was creating room within this shed as well. I've taken my daughter to paintball. I've done laser skirmish. I've done bungee jumping. I've done skydiving. These are all extreme activities. I'm just learning how to throw an axe, and that's really cool. I think there's room in that genre for smash environment, for a smash room, for smashing. And with the height of COVID, there was so much frustration and anger, and I thought I can tap into this. So I used the existing structure, put down a floor and I put down some walls. They were flexible. They were literally just a shade cloth over the top of tennis netting, and then I put a roof on it. So I'd started collecting stock on my way back from my coffee trailer. So on my way back, I'd stop here and a lot of curbside collection was happening, and I'd pick up a printer here and a microwave there and a TV here and whatnot. And I'd slowly building my stock. And I got myself some safety gear, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do the very first smash just to test the integrity of these rooms. So I took in a crate of stuff that I'd been collecting. I found a little, one of those little 30 centimetre TVs, those box TVs. I got into there and I smashed through half a crate, and then I came back out and I just checked the corners and there's a gap there, fixed that up. Once I was happy with the integrity and the safety aspect of it, then we just started spreading the word. The name of it was just Rage Cage. It just made a lot of sense because I literally was putting people into a cage. They were getting rid of their rage. And there was so much rage and anger floating around because of everyone getting pushed down and quelled down because of COVID. You can do this, you can't do this. There was so many indoor activities were just literally closed. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't go to the movies. You know, they weren't even making movies. You couldn't do anything indoors. You couldn't even go shopping. My advertising to get people to come, apart from the whole anger side of things, was hey, we made gloves and masks cool before COVID did. So it took probably a good 6 to 9 months for it to really take hold, and it really only started to kick off when restrictions were lifted, and then suddenly people had freedom again. I was inundated, and then for the next 8 to 9 months, I just had both of those cages were just going almost non-stop. In one Saturday, I started at 10, I finished at 6 that night. I put through 36 people in one day for one person with only 2 outlets, and it was non-stop. It was crazy. Like, it just took off really well. So because I'm an entrepreneur and a businessman at heart, this wasn't a side gig. It was either everything or nothing. So the only way to do that, in my opinion, is to throw everything you've got at it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. You gave it the very best shot that you've got. Maybe you could have tweaked some stuff along the way. So I just threw everything that I had at it. In terms of passion, in terms of drive, in terms of thought, in terms of marketing, everything that I knew over a 25-year period of being in business and running other people's businesses, I poured into that little venture that I kicked off. I learned every day. I learned something new. Tweak this, do this, talk this way, break this down, mention this instead of this. And I'm still learning today. Whenever I'm in a venue and I happen to be taking people through, I'll notice there are still subtle differences, even today, 6 years down the track, that I still say things slightly differently to the day before or the week before. There's still little subtle things that I'll put in to make their experience so much better. Honestly, it was a little bit of anxiety. It was a lot of fear. I've been a Toastmaster in the past. Public speaking wasn't a problem, and I've been a salesman for more than half of my life. I wasn't worried about talking to people. I can talk to people very well. What I was concerned about was the order of how things had to come out so that the customers understood the potential danger that they were going to be facing. If you don't adhere to even the simple rules that we have in place, you can potentially hurt yourself because you're literally smashing things. I was more concerned about getting that script right and ensuring that the people that had put their trust in what I'd built, and me personally, that they fully understood the danger that they could potentially end up in. I had to make sure that they heard what could potentially happen and that what I was offering was the safest possible environment for what they're about to enter. So that was one of my fears, that I would trip over my own words and stumble and not get the message across that this is an enormous amount of fun, absolutely. However, there is an element of danger and you need to be aware of that so that when you enter this environment of your own free will, you have the very best time, but you do it as safely as possible. No, there was no plan B. I sold my coffee trailer. I was doing the coffee out of obligation for people that had been using me for a couple of years, and I didn't want to let them down. I found that I was juggling the two, but Rage Cage was really up here and coffee was not. It came to a point where somebody made me an offer on my coffee trailer. I didn't think twice. Like, yep, have it. Like, the drive was fed from my customer base. It's incredibly humbling to build something that is literally nobody's ever heard of before or seen or done, and for people to come and spend their money on something that you've put together, to literally build something, and for people to come and pay you for what you've done and the idea that you've come up with. And even today, it still astounds me. People come and pay my business to smash things, to literally break things. But essentially, I was a one-man show. And I found that it allowed me to be a lot more personable with the customer base that were coming in. And I'd have a lot of people come in and they'd be brought in by a friend and say, oh, this would be really good for you. And the friend would come in and say, oh, I'm not that angry. You don't have to be angry. It can be fun as well. But I guarantee you start smashing things in an environment where you're given permission to. It'll only be 1 or 2 items before you start to tap into some emotions that you might not have even known were there. You know, they're so pushed down and so deep-seated. And I still haven't really got my head around how that works, but I know that it does. I've got dozens, hundreds of stories of people that I've seen come in and they are quite literally a completely different person when they leave. People have used us as an outlet instead of punching holes in walls or hurting people or hurting themselves. I had a guy literally a week ago. I couldn't get him to crack a smile, and normally I can. And I was actually concerned for him because he was so stoic. He went into the room, he came back out, he grabbed a TV. I said, "Do you want a sledgehammer?" He said, "No, I'm going to use the bat." I thought, man, that's some hard work. And he did. He worked through whatever he was going through. And he came out and shook my hand. He said, "Thanks. I don't think I'm going to prison now." I mean, that just hits you so hard. Like goosebumps. I understand how people end up in that environment and how they end up in that emotional state. But to use what we offer as a safe place or as an avenue for an outlet, it's so incredibly humbling. Since I've gotten to this point of success, I've had at least a dozen people approach me and want to do something similar, want to build their own, do their own. The piece of advice that I try and give everyone, whether they're doing what we do, whether they're striking out on their own, do everything that you can on your own. And I don't mean not ask for help, but what I mean is don't throw money at something that potentially you can do yourself. If you can put a little video together and punch it out on Facebook, do it. If you can build a room that will take the velocity of a smash environment, do it yourself. You will cut down on so much unnecessary expenditure. Like, we all need a place to work from, absolutely. Even if you're mobile, you need somewhere to do it. I'm not one for delegation. If I delegated more, maybe I wouldn't be so tired. I also have, I guess, trust issues. If I can explain how to do it to somebody, sometimes it's quicker just to do it myself. And that's not necessarily healthy, but it's also just how I've always operated. And therefore, then I get into this position where it's really hard to ask for help because, well, you're not going to do it the way that I do it. There's good and bad. Yes, there's financial saving, but you also look at burnout pretty quick. If you have other people come in and do jobs that maybe you haven't done yourself, it's probably not going to be done the way that you want it to be done unless you're going hand in hand with them. And if you're going to do that, then maybe it's best to do it on your own. Or you can look at it the other way and say, well, look, I've done every job in this business, from mopping the floor, cleaning the toilet, building the room, emptying the room, whatever it is, everything. I've done everything. So when you bring somebody on, you can then teach them how you want it done. Not necessarily how it looks like it should be done, but this is coming from the horse's mouth. This is how I do it. I know that it works. I know that it's efficient because I've spent 5 years honing this. If I'm needing to do two people's jobs, then that's the tipping point where we need the second or third person. And I see so many young tradesmen who are an apprentice, or they've just started, or maybe they've got their trade and now they're striking out on their own. They're investing the money, in my opinion, in the wrong areas. I'll go and visit them the next day and suddenly they've got an $80,000 truck in the car park. Groovy for you. However, that money could have been spent on the budget stock over here, or a second machine, or a part-time person, or some advertising, or so many other things that are going to add benefit and revenue back into your business, rather than, hey, look at me, I'm super flashy and somewhat successful. I had an accident when I was 8 years old. So I grew up in the country. And this was back in the early 80s, back before technology, back before phones. So I was 8 years old. We were kids on a working farm. Even at that age, we had chores. One of my chores was to feed the chooks, to help with the farm. And because we were running a fruit business, we would have rats, crows. We had a number of weapons. We had an air rifle that we were allowed to use as kids, and we would use those to try and shoot the rats in the packing shed that were chasing and eating the fruit. My parents were away one weekend. My brothers and sisters were away. We were a family of 7 children. We were being looked after by one nanny, and she had her 3 kids there. So there was 10 kids in the house, 1 adult. We were 10 years and younger. So my older stepbrother and I, who was 10, we thought it would be a brilliant idea to go through the house and dry fire all of the rifles at other kids. Yeah, not super smart. So that's what we did. So we went through, we started with the air rifle, we went to the 22, we went to the 22 Magnum, we went to the shotgun, and then we couldn't reach this particular rifle that was up on the wall. I climbed up onto the liquor cabinet, got this 303 rifle off the top of the gun rack, brought it down, gave it to my stepbrother, and instead of firing it at somebody, he turned around and fired it at me. And we didn't realise it was loaded. So it took out 3 of my fingers and most of my right lung. So that's what happened to my hand. And then for the next 5 years I spent, I've lost count of how many operations, both chest. I spent so much time in Prince Charles Hospital at Chermside there that I ended up going to school in hospital because I was in hospital so much. My last operation, they put a pin in my thumb. So there was a pin, it's gone now, but they put a pin in my thumb and attached it to my wrist because there's actually no joint there. That's just muscle holding that on. Because there's no sinew or anything, you're literally looking at the thumb that I had when I was 8 years old. That operation happened when I was 13. Which was great because that was the last operation. If I'd had to have another operation after that, they would have had to have put me into the male ward instead of the children's ward. Trust me, you get treated far better as a kid in hospital than you do as an adult. I never lose. I learn, or I win. And I think if you approach life like that, then of course you're not going to win everything. But if you can learn something from how you lost, why you lost, when you lost, and absorb that, and then just continue to add building blocks to who you are, I think going forward, you'll be so much stronger mentally and physically and emotionally. You can tackle most anything. I attribute who I am today to the upbringing that I had. I arrived on the working farm when I was 4 years old, and I left when I was 15. So I had that 11 years of literally being thrown at anything. I'm in a unique position where I can turn my hand to anything and not worry about failing or not getting it right or not being able to do it. I've always had the belief, or been shown the belief in myself, that you can do it. This is how we do it. This is how I've done it. You can do it. Just put a plan into action and off you go. Coming full circle to something you mentioned before about not having a plan B. I've lived pretty much my entire adult life without a safety net. I don't have a family to fall back on. So if I don't make it, I don't make it. There's nobody to catch me. There's nobody to bail me out. Going forward is the only way. And because if you show even the slightest bit of doubt in yourself, you will start to second guess yourself, and then you'll start to make those little mistakes that will cost you time, money, effort, and passion. And it's not a way to go forward. I think if you're feeling that, you need to make the time. This goes back to my childhood as well. I'm a pretty big, powerful guy. When I was about 10 years old, because I had anger issues as a kid, stepmother, she came up to me one day and she sat me down and she said, look, whether you know it or not, you're going to grow up to be a large person. You're going to grow up to be a powerful person. We're talking physicality. And if you can't rein your anger in now, if you can't learn how to quell it, deal with it, bottle it, channel it, you're going to kill someone. And that's going to be your life. As ridiculous as that sounds, it shook me to my core. Because I was always getting in fights with my stepbrother. I always wanted to smash him in the face. He didn't help. He was a bully. He goaded me a lot. I'm lucky enough to have dealt with that. I don't know how, honestly. I can't tell you how I was able to do that. I still get angry today, and I just find a way to deal with it. The same message goes for those. Like everyone knows when they're angry. You can feel it. Your body is vibrating. you can't focus, you feel hot, you just want to explode either physically, you want to explode onto something or onto someone. And those aren't healthy thoughts. Absolutely not. If you're in that state of mind, you have to make the time to channel it. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a smash room. Maybe boxing is for you. Maybe go and throw an axe. Maybe go and join woodcutting. Throw an axe into timber until you've cut through that piece of timber. Or even something clay. Go and model some clay. Do something. Emotion that you feel is so overwhelming that you need to channel it somehow. And it doesn't have to be violent. Channel it into a calm environment. And it does help. But maybe you need to get it out first. Everyone feels angry. Absolutely. There's no question about that. And if you don't deal with it, you're going to hurt somebody. You're going to hurt yourself. You might hurt your kids. You might hurt your spouse. You might wreck your car. You might wreck your house. There's 1,000 different things that you could do because you haven't tempered it. So come in, deal with it. It's not a long-term solution, but it's most definitely a short-term solution. Everyone that comes in here feels so much better when they leave, whether they've done it for fun, whether they've done it for therapy, whether they've needed it for that particular moment.
Thank you. It's a wrap.